maybe you can talk about like why.
I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why specifically we were very passionate about it.
Soapbox.
But still the growing pains are keeping me up at night.
Okay, so today we are going to be filming a video about our home buying process. We did film another video more so about like the emotional side of purchasing a home, which we can link down below. And then we also filmed our empty house tour, so if you wanna see the house, we can also link that video down below. But this video is more like the logistical side.
Yeah, I mean, I just feel like, so I handled a lot of like the paperwork and like stuff like that, and I think it was probably one of the more overwhelming experiences that I've ever had. And so I think that there are a lot of millennials out there buying homes for the first time, and we're very like digital generation, and this is like old school. Like this, the way you buy a home has like always been the same. And so I think that it's really good to share our experience of like the logistical side of what it means to buy a home.
What would you say is the first thing that you should think about or do when buying a home?
So we didn't do this, but I would recommend that you should always kind of try and figure out your budget first. Your budget is not like a black and white thing. You would think it is because you have a number in your bank account and that's like a very like definitive thing. But when emotion gets involved in the home buying process, which it will, it just like complicates things. It like you start to imagine yourself in a place, and then you start to rationalize, oh, well, we can afford this, and then maybe you can't. And so there's like a couple tips and tricks I think we should talk about what it means to set a budget and how you can do that well.
Isn't it supposed to be like 3 to 5 times as much as you make in a year?
Yeah, so like if you make $100,000 in a year, and we'll just use that as a standard number, you could probably like stretch between, you know, a $300,000 home or a $500,000 home. So it's like a 3 to 5 times number. I would probably be on more like the 3 side. This one here would probably be on more the 5 side, and that's okay. She's just a risk taker and we love her. What I always say is just for your own protection is like take 6 months out, 6 months of what you need to live on. Like we'll call it an emergency fund. So if like you moved into your house and you lost your job immediately, you at least have 6 months to kind of figure everything out. So after that 6 months is taken away, subtract that from your bank account just automatically, and maybe look at that number that's left as what you can afford for your down payment. So when you go and you like are purchasing, like again, let's say a $100,000 home, you typically have to put down 20%, right? Like it's good practice to put down 20%.
So that means like right after that, when you buy the home, you lose $20,000, 20% of the cost of the home. It's not really a set number because you have to consider all the small costs that will add up, like your closing costs, or if you're gonna break a lease. Like we had to, for a couple of months, we'll be paying our mortgage and our lease or the rent from our previous home. So things like that really add up.
Yeah, because it's a good thing to talk about like this concept of being house poor, right? So like I think house poor, you had it defined better, but like I think you said being house poor is like,
well, it's like you're living in a place that you love, and like technically you can't afford it, but you can't go out to eat on the weekends, and you can't buy furniture, and you don't have because you're paying your mortgage. So that's something we haven't gone into yet, is that you also will have an ongoing monthly payment called your mortgage, and that's something that you'll always have to pay until you pay off your loan. So that's usually the way that they figure out your mortgage, is like paying off your loan, the amount that you borrowed from the bank over 30 years. And so that will be your mortgage.
Yeah. So like what's gonna happen is like you're gonna look at your bank account, and then you're gonna take your 6 months out, and then you're gonna look at whatever number that is left, right? And you're gonna roughly be able to say, okay, well, here's what we have for a down payment, and then you're gonna look at like being house poor, and like you're gonna try and figure out how much house you can really afford based on your down payment. Now, that's like a decision between you and your spouse or significant other.
Or if you're buying your home.
Or if you're buying your own home, you know, so what next is gonna come is like the second kind of system of checks and balance for setting your budget, and that's just getting pre-approved or approved first, right?
Ooh. This was like,
so this is where Dani checked out, and I checked in.
Peace out.
Okay, I want this house by. Can you guys work out the details?
No,
I'll be gone.
No, I was really good at the strategy.
Yeah,
okay.
You're so good at the strategy.
I am not. I give you credit.
So smart girl. So we went through the pre-approval process first, meaning like, so when you buy a home, like you don't, let's say you're buying a $100,000 home, you don't give $100,000, you put 20% down, and then the lender will finance the rest of the home,
which would
right?
be $80,000.
Right, which will be $80,000. So they cover the rest of it. So you work with a lender. Now there's like a ton of different ways, and there's so many lenders out there. You can go to LendingTree, and it's all about, you know, what the best interest rate they're gonna give you is. So go to lendingtree.com and basically just figure out what the competitive rates are in your area. But once you select a lender, their job is to make sure that you can buy a house that you can afford. Now, really important point, the lender's job is to make sure that you will never foreclose on your house based on the historical financial data, but they're not really there to protect you from stretching yourself too far, right? Like they won't let you buy a house that you simply cannot afford. If you make $100,000 a year, you're not gonna buy a $2 million property, but they will let you stretch yourself as far as they think that you know.
Because it's just helping the banks. So you have to look out for yourself. You
remember the first time like we got our pre-approval letter.
And we were like.
I remember I called one lender, and it wasn't the lender we ended up working with, it was a different lender. And I called them and I was like, hey, I need a pre-approval letter. And they were like, okay, how much do you want it for?
Yeah, literally, and Jordan's like this like crazy number, and they're like, okay. And so that would have been really scary if we would have just assumed, oh, we can afford this much because our lender let us do that. Like, so like, let's just say you're buying a $100,000 home. Like you need a letter from your lender saying, I approve Dani and Jordan to buy a $100,000 home. And then whenever you're, you know, negotiating, that will really help you to have that documentation saying that you can actually afford that amount.
And so like if we were fully approved, it means that like what makes you more competitively advantaged is like saying, I want to close on this today, versus someone who has to go through the whole process, and they might not, you know, get their financing in order and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, just think about it. Like if we were selling our home and we have 3 people come to us with offers, we're gonna wanna work with the people that have already gotten their financing approved by their lender, not these 2 other people that are like, we think we can afford this much, because that's just like wasting time with 2 buyers that aren't really serious. Should we tell them kind of like what we actually went through when we made the offer? Because it was kind of stressful. It was a lot. So
we were in like a seller's market, meaning like every house that we wanted, like we lost a few, and we told you all about that. But you know, when we went and put an offer down, there were multiple offers on the actual property at the time, which
like we went to the house and we were gonna make an offer, and like our realtor opens the door. She's like, someone put an offer on the house this morning, and not like both of us are just like.
You know, Dani's very particular, obviously, based on her requirements of like the home. And so when she fell in love with this place, I was like, oh my gosh, like we've got to figure out how to get this. And so I typed out a letter, and I was like, hey, my name's Jordan. You know, we've already lost like 2 homes in Dallas, you know, that we really wanted. My wife is in love with this area and this property, and it's like the first time she's been in love with something. And so I was like, hey, I just wanted to tell you our story. Like I wanted to tell you that we're kind of internet people, and like you'd be able to see our story and like the way that this home blessed us unfold. And we wrote them a personal letter.
You know, that was like a strategy that we used because since there was like a bidding war, like there were like 2 or 3 multiple offers. Now I wouldn't write a letter if you're the only offer. I don't think you need to show your cards and be like, we love this house, like everything about it. You want to, you're negotiating and you're gonna be going back and forth. And of course the seller's gonna try to get as much out of you as you can. And we can't really speak to like negotiate. Like, we're not like masters at that. We're just talking about like our personal experience. It was very different because there was multiple offers, but that's why we wrote the letter, because we were like, okay, this is competitive now and these sellers have a heart. Okay, so that was a lot of information, but we just really wanted to share our personal experience to see if it would help anybody else out. So we'll put some of the other home purchasing videos and our home tour down below for you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you subscribe if you want to see more videos on Wednesdays and Sundays, and we'll talk to you later.
But still the growing pains, they're keeping me up at night.